Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Just going to give it one more minute to let everybody in. Great. So welcome to the Western Regional Agricultural Stress Assistance Program, the WRASAP Network quarterly meeting for this quarter. Today, we're going to be talking about building community connections of care to address the mental health needs of farmers in Hawaii. And we have Dr. Thao with us today from the University of Hawaii. The presentation is going to be amazing, and we'll tell you a little bit more about her in a little bit. Again, welcome. My name is Esmeralda Mandujano, and I am with the California Agribility out of the University of California in Davis. We host this sessions for the Western Regional Agricultural Stress Assistance Program as part of our partnership agreement, and this is a space for all of us to come together once a quarter. Next slide. So a little bit of background on WRASAP. The mission of WRASAP is it was funded by the USDA NIFA under the Farm and Ranch Stress Assistance Network. And this grant establishes regional networks that connect agricultural producers, that includes farmers, ranchers, farm workers, and others in agricultural related occupations. And we connect them with resources to assist them in times of stress. We also do this with the entire family, not just the farmer or the farm worker. There are 4 U.S. regional programs. The one that corresponds to the West is WRASAP. Some of the efforts that are part of WRASAP include a clearinghouse, a small grants program, call staff extension, and also a network. And these meetings are part of the networking stuff. Some of the highlights from the small grants program is that we've awarded a large number of small grants that have allowed other partners to address farm stress in their own communities. The clearinghouse continues to grow with new resources being added. For this clearinghouse, we're partnered with our colleagues at Farm Aid, and they are also operating our call staff lines. More recently, we have added a few states in the West where the AgriSafe helpline is operating. So a little bit more on the WRASAP region, we cover 13 states and 4 territories. This is really important because the West is very varied. Our agricultural productions are very different. We're a very diverse area. So a lot of the different projects that are being done under WRASAP are very unique to the areas, but we also have some programs that encompass different areas, the regions. And then for our WRASAP efforts, these are just some of the partners that are working on these 4 areas. Again, these are only some of the partners. We have increased the number of partners from this list. So today we're here for a WRASAP networking meeting, and the goals of this meeting are to bring together stakeholders to be able to bring connections and collaborations to assist agricultural producers in times of stress. Also to improve behavioral health awareness, literacy, and outcomes for agricultural producers, their families, and communities. Collaborators are invited to present their efforts and offer opportunities to pose questions and bring experiences to the table. And the meeting is open to the public and to external partners. So it's a space where we can learn from each other. So our agenda for today, we'll have the intro, then we'll dive into a little bit of an icebreaker, then we'll dive into the presentation, announcements, and then we will close. So our icebreaker for today, we're gonna have you go into breakout rooms. Again, introduce yourself with your name, your agency, your role, or if you're a community member, mention that. Share a highlight of your year so far. What are you grateful for? And also share one thing you will do this week for your mental health. we're saying this week because today is October 10th and it is World Mental Health Day. So if you don't have time or if you have a very busy schedule today, at least have something planned out for you to do for your mental health this week. So now Angelina is going to break us out into the breakout rooms. Or we're all back. We were very deep into our conversation. I'm going to have to kind of continue to catch back with the people I was talking with because we lost a little bit of where we were, but it was really fun to hear what others are grateful for. I can share for me what I mentioned that I was grateful for is that my community is getting a park, and it's something that has been in the making for about 20 years. So that is pretty exciting to see coming to fruition. I also did share with some of the people in my group that someone did a half marathon, and I was like, that's really good for our mental health. I also try to run. That's what I try to do here and there for my own mental health. So it was really great to see similarities across some of the things that we're grateful, but also some of the things that we're doing for our mental health. Would anybody else like to share? Yeah.
I'll share, Esme. I had an awesome conversation with Maddie, and we are both feeling excited about the Pizza for Producer event next week, getting to connect with folks. And as far as this year goes, that feels like a culmination of a lot of networking that's been going on through different groups for that to be able to happen. So it seems like a good thing, yeah, for people to just come back together, and we were both looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's gonna be exciting. I do have it at the end for our announcements. And it's also something to be grateful for because being able to connect with people that you work across this very diverse, big region that we're in is a pretty big accomplishment. So that's pretty good. All right, we'll move on so we can give Thao enough time for her presentation. So our presenter for today is Dr. Thao Lee, and she is the director of Seeds of Wellbeing. And she's the director of Seeds of Wellbeing, and this is a project focusing on farm stress and well-being, which was recently acknowledged by the Mental Health American Hawai'i Award winner, Outstanding Community Mental Leaders. She is also currently serving as professor and chair of the Consumer Family Health Sciences Department in the College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resources at the University of Hawaii in Manoa. And I'm so happy to say that she received her PhD from the Department of Psychology here at UC Davis. So it's always great when I see like this connections across the West, because one way or another, we're connected and we're working towards the same mission. So with that, I will turn it over to Thao.
Thank you, Esme. Good morning, everyone. I think some of you guys are already afternoon, but it is morning in Hawaii on this lovely, beautiful, sunny day. I would like to share. Can you see my screen? Just want to make sure.
Yes.
Yeah, we see it.
Okay, great. Now, how do I move forward? Next one. Okay. Does that work? Yes. So the Seeds of Wellbeing, this is a project that was originally funded by the Hawaii Department of Ag. We're actually on our 3rd year anniversary. So we only started with the 1 year of funding that Hawaii Department of Ag gave us through the NIFA, USDA NIFA for all the states. And then the last 2 years of our 3-year anniversary, we've been bare bones with my 2 staff. With WRASAP. So thank you, WRASAP, for providing us support after the Hawaii Department of Ag gave us the funding for the 1st year. As you can see, we did a lot with the minimal funding that we received to support my 2 staff, that I am very grateful to the WRASAP for providing us with that support to allow us to meet 3 years. And I'll tell you with some other good news for the next 4 years that we have. So Hawaii is quite different from the mainland for the most part of farming. Perhaps it's similar more to Guam and some of the Pacific Island, in that majority of our farmers and farm size is quite small, about 5 acres compared to what you see in terms of acreage in Colorado or even California or in the mainland. I would say about 2/3 of our farmers are working on land that's less than 10 acres. And about 10% of our farmers are working on land that's 50 acres or more. Hawaii does have a high cost of land and labor. If you haven't been to Hawaii, it is very expensive. And so our farmers are very challenged in terms of access to labor and land. And because they work with commodity crops that are specialized, they don't get the subsidies that oftentimes you see on the mainland. Hawaii farm characteristics. I just want to give you a little background characteristics of what's happening in the farming community, in case you're not aware of in Hawaii. We've had experienced a decrease in number of not only acreage that's been used for farming, but as well as number of farmers who are engaged in farming. Actually, in the last census, we've seen that there's been a decrease, I think about 4%, but it went from 7,300 farmers to about less than 7,000, now 6,900. And again, this data shows you that majority of our farmers are working on land that are less than 50 acres. And that has the change, though, in the last 5 years has been more of our small farmers are exiting. And so we have the remaining farmers are more that working on large farms. So that's been a change that we've seen in the last 5 years. Like our small farmers are leaving the farming agriculture community because it is so hard to be a farmer, particularly if you're small farmers in Hawaii. Now, this chart shows you the top agriculture commodity groups, commodities by values. Seed crops, we've got a couple of, because Hawaii has growing, unlike perhaps on the mainland, you only have a brief growing season. We are growing season 12 months. So it's really ideal for those who are, so a lot of the corn crops that you see on the mainland are the seeds are from Hawaii. We've got large seed companies that they do their seed, developing their seed crops. So as you can see, it is the top commodity in Hawaii. Not avocados, not papaya, even though we do grow a lot of papayas and avocados, not compared to the seed crops. And the flower and our horticulture is a big part of our commodity. You see the pineapple because they don't, when there's only few, because of confidentiality, if you only have 1 or 2 producers, you can't, you can't put it up there. So we kind of like, we think the pineapples around there. And then for Hawaii, the kalo, it's taro, it's a very important crop. We don't have good indicators, but we think it's around near the papaya and avocado. Okay, next slide. We did a perception. So as I mentioned, it's very challenging and hard and to be a farmer in Hawaii, and our local residents also perceive that to be true. So we did a random sample of 400 residents across the Hawaiian Islands. And our local residents said, yes, 9% of farmers have high or moderate level of stress. So they agree that is really hard. They also say that it's really hard to make money in Hawaii to be a farmer. 2% says farmers have a high profit margin, and only 32% says that farmers have a good to fair profit margin. So there is consensus that this is a hard activity, hard occupations. So as part of our initial funding from Hawaii Department of Ag, we did not even know what was the mental health situations and how does that compare to the mainland. And so we sent out 2,000 survey to our farmers, in addition to having a QR code, and we had 408 respondents to our survey. And what we found was that using the same depression and suicidal ideation measure, the PHQ-9 that we have for the general population, and the CDC use the same measures, we found that our farmers are comparable to our public health workers and are indeed higher than the general populations in terms of depressive symptomology and having suicide ideation, which I didn't show here. And even when you look at the different age groups or subgroups, you even have higher risk. So those 45 and younger, so the new generation farmers, those who are younger farmers, their signs of depressive symptomology and suicidal ideations are even higher than the statistics that we have here. We also asked our family member. Now it's really hard. It's a small sample, but our family members who completed the survey found that the stress, depression, and suicidal thoughts were even higher than what the farmers themselves reported. Because sometimes it's the wife or the parents or the children or the older children's and the cousins. They were the ones who said, you know what, my family member who's a farmer, they've got really, more challenging issues than they themselves are willing to acknowledge. So I think what we need more is asking the family members about what is going on in terms of the mental health versus always asking the farmers who there might be stigma around, a lot of stigma still around acknowledging mental health challenges. We also wanted to see, well, what was stressing who? And which in the different groups had the most stress. And we found, okay, for the younger farmers, 18 to 45, financial and time. So they had a lot of issues with time and financial stressors. For our older, more established farmers with livestock. So livestock actually showed to be the most stress and had the highest, greatest suicidal ideations and mental health challenges. Uncertainty rank was really high up there, and weather for our livestock producers. And you can see, and these are all available on our website, all this data. So we took the survey and we did a modeling and looking at logistic regression. And so the data it's published in the Journal of Agri-Medicine. So what we did was, I'm just taking what we found and putting in this sort of visual graph so you can see. So what we found in terms of what was the main predictor of depressive symptomology was being stressed. And uncertainty as a stressor. So if being stressed predicted highly being depressed, what predicted suicidal ideation, and it is actually being depressed. Having indication of depression was a whopping 32% greater if you had signs of depression in terms of predicting suicide ideation. Interestingly enough, media focus coping, using media as a form of coping, was high up there in terms of predicting both depression and suicidal ideation. So perhaps talking about our younger generation farmers who are still, they might be using media in different ways, and one of the ways may not be very adaptive as a form of coping. We also conducted 77 interviews with our farmers, and this was all again done within the first year when we received funding from Hawaii Department of Ag. And what we found, what came up in terms of our qualitative data, was that connection. So social ties to family and community well-being was, and with nature, connection with nature came up as being what they expressed as vital for their mental health and well-being. And then what they recommended was building more social network. And expanding and encouraging more community connections, in fact, and even peer mentoring. And so you can see that the data informed the approaches that we took. So we took more of a data-driven approach to what we then, how we're going to address this mental health issues for our farmers in Hawaii. The mental health challenges included cultural considerations. We have 18 different languages at least that are spoken across the islands in Hawaii in our immigrant and farming community. We know that community, most of our farmers are family farmers, and so community, families, and ohana in Hawaiian means family. So it's not just your blood family, but your kinships and your that extends to the larger networks that is part of your ohana. So the importance of family and community was really important. And we wanted to bring that into any interventions that we were doing, including the peer mentor program. And you'll see how we did that with our peer mentorship program, because from all the data and the literature that we read through, we realized that farmers are actually more comfortable talking to friends and family members than to seek professional help. So then how do we provide more confidence and a little bit of tools and skills to our farming community so they can have that conversation? And as I mentioned, the data informed the Seeds of Wellbeing approach, and what we did for the next 2 years after we did our baseline finding. I mean, we proceeded doing a lot of things, not knowing if this was the right strategy, but we wanted to really enhance connectedness, because I think that's what we saw was really missing, this element of connectedness in the way that we have approached the farming stress situation. So This is our kind of like a brief snapshot of the model in terms of what we did for the last 3 years. We recruited our peer mentors and we provided a voucher program because we know all our peers are not, they need to have support. And one of the ways they have support is to make sure that if, when they're doing their conversation in the community, that they know that they could access professional help or provide some sort of professional help that was beyond their own capacity to do. So we included both the voucher program with the peer as a form to support what the data was telling us, how stress, uncertainty was a big predictor of stress, and stress was a predictor of depression, and depression was a big predictor of suicide. We wanted to break this chain in different ways. So we developed our Cool Mind main thing, which was a culturally, to the extent possible, the most culturally responsive way to provide resources to a farmer on stress management. Because I looked at the literature and what was resources out there. And, as academic, we tend to be very like, oh, we have to be very professional. And so my Cool Mind main thing was a little bit more fun, and we had like more doodling and images. And we realized that doing that, even though I got like a little bit of grief for not making it look professional, that the farmers, that they keep asking for that resource because it was a friendly way to present this. So that was our approach, and that's why we did it in a more friendly way and not the usual kind of academic professional style. The mental health first aid, all our mentors went through an 8-hour mental health first aid training, as well as the QPR that was provided by AgriSafe. So they had to do all this training before they were considered an ag mentor. Community-driven solution was the beef of what we do in our Seeds of Wellbeing. And we did that through the peer mentorship program. So recognizing the value of really the connections that already exist in the community and providing and reinforcing this tools and skills so that our farmers themselves feel confident and be able to have that discussion with their peers in the community. Because we also looked at, it can't just be always an individual, we tend to be like, oh, it must be my problem. I need to figure it out for myself. And I'm like, because I come from a public health training background as well, that we need to educate the public and increase appreciation and respect that's coming from the forces larger than the individual themselves. So we were also trying to increase public support and community interest in helping our farmers. And so we had a little Malama the Farmer campaign, which we created 4 videos to highlight, and it went really well. We've got like 60,000 people have looked at it, and the farmers loved it. And so that was the intention, is like moving from the individual level to more of a community level approach. And now we actually just got we're doing WRASAP 4, and then we got funding recently from Department of Health and Human Services, and we're moving now to building networks. So we are continuing seeing this project, but now we're expanding our network to not only include the peer mentors, we're actually expanding to include community-based organizations, cultural practitioners, and agricultural organizations. So we're trying to do more system changes rather than just at the peer level. So we are expanding in the next 4 years to do that. So why peer support? I'm going to get back to the last 3 years of our project. So farmers, like I mentioned, are more comfortable discussing challenges with their peers who understands their experiences. So you're more likely to share and open up to those who understand that they are farmers themselves. So that's why we focus on training our ag peers. There's a level of trust there. And farmers, they're less likely to go and drive to a mental health provider, or even if it's available on telehealth, to be the one that says, you know what, I'm going to call or even call a hotline. So we thought, we really need to, as much as possible, destigmatize this mental health issues in the community. And what's a better way than to get as many farmers as possible to start having this discussion? Because the way it works here in Hawaii is through the coconut wires. Now that we've got some credibility in the farming community, people, I do have farmers coming up and say, thank God you guys exist. I know we've been having these issues and no one has been willing to talk about it, but now we know that, so people know us, and sometimes they know us so well that even the extension folks said, Thao, I know you're all about mental health, but please don't put that as the first topic. You know, we're just gonna have to like softly, because there's still a stigma, because now everybody knows, they see me like, oh my God, here's Thao with her mental health thing. So I have to like kind of connect in a way, because everybody knows we're branded now. So there's a branding in this community. I mean, the community is not that large, so people know us. Oh, and it's a scalable solution when we do this Ag Peer Mentor. So how do we do, okay, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't really know what I was doing. So we just like figured it out along the way. And so what we did was we had a recruitment process, and we already were connected with some of the Hawaii farmer organization, particularly Hawaii Farm Bureau and Hawaii Farm Union. United, they had like, between the two of the organizations, they had about 2,000 farmers who were part of that network already. And so we really blasted on our social media to recruit this process, to recruit Ag mentors. Once we have a process of recruitment, then we do the training, that QPR, mental health first aid, my main thing, and then we do a regular online support. So every month we do offer a Zoom where they do come in, and we invite mental health professionals and other professionals to provide continuing education of sorts. Some of the topics we've covered is like substance abuse, marital conflict, conflict management. So whatever topics our mentors are asking for, then the next session we try to find somebody to provide that support. Okay. So the recruitment process, we like there were 2-3 phases to it. There was an outreach where we have social media. We have now more than 1,000 members on our Instagram, which is I think quite, you know, I thought, I don't know, I don't do social media, but apparently I heard that 1,000, you reach 1,000, that's really good for something like this, particularly when you're connected with a university, like, oh my God, like, you know, which anyhow. So we do a lot of connections through our outreach, our social media platform, which I've got 2 staff who takes care of all that. So don't even ask me about social media. I don't know anything about social media. There's a simple application process, very simple. And then we do a selection process where we want to make sure that, you know, there hasn't been any issue with this person in the community. Again, it's a small community. So just a simple check-in to make sure that it's the right individuals for this project. We are very mindful at making sure that all the training that we do incorporate our culture values. So we do an oldie sometimes before we do any training. We make sure that there's food, even though the federal government, any funding you get, as you all know, no food. So we need to like be very resourceful and find food, because we can't do any community events without food. So we make sure, because no one's gonna come without food. And I'm still having a problem with this issue. Like, oh my God, I can't do anything without food, and they never include food in the budget for us. And what is really wonderful about what we do is that once our Ag mentors get a little bit more comfortable, they then they host on their farms a community gathering day in their community to talk about the mental health issue. And then we just come along and provide them with the resources and support. So eventually they're the ones who are leading this discussion, and they're the ones, and we work with them to organize that, right? Because they don't have time to do that. So we help with a little bit of the organization and provide them with the support. And I find a little stipend to help them so that we can cover food and their resources for their time. And we're constantly listening to them and getting feedback to make sure that we are responsive to what they're asking, and not, because academia tends to be very like, oh, we know what's best. No, we don't know. And we tend to copy each other in terms of, oh, well, this person did this, so we must do this, and this has to be like, I'm like, I tend to be a little rogue, and I kind of go and do whatever. Oh my God, this is recorded. Well, no, I do it properly, but I tend to do things in a different way, right? I do follow every protocol, and I do get, you know, I don't go, but I just tend to like, I think sometimes we do things that we think we know. And so for this project, we're always listening to what our peers and our farmers are saying. And one of the things is like, now stop talking about mental health. But so we have to say it in different ways, right? Got to find different ways of saying this. So we do provide stipends for our mentor. We recognize that, you know, and they actually do the math, like, okay, for 14 hours of training, you get $500. Oh, that's more than the hourly wage that I pay my farm worker. So then they'll like, so, you know, we do have to pay for their time, acknowledge that for their time and their commitment to be part of this project. And it shows like we value their time. Okay, what is my time? Talking about time, I better check on my time, make sure I'm not over time. So far, we have 61 mentors trained today, and we're now on our 4th cohort. And it blew me away. We have 22 mentors applying for our 4th cohort. So it's gonna be 61 plus 22. If they're all staying, it'll be 85, right? I had a goal of 300. Okay, again, Thao is ridiculous. She puts these things, but that was my goal, that we have 300 ag mentors at some point in this life of when I'm doing this project. But we're slowly getting there. And when we advertise for ag mentors, we get a lot of interest now because, you know, through the coconut wire, people say, oh my God, come to this, and you should be an ag mentor. So it's slowly trickling, you know, into the community, and people want to be part of this project, which is great, right? Rather than like not be part of the project. We provide specialized workshop sometimes, and now we are creating a flyer because what we realize what we need to reach are the larger farmers, right? We've been very good with the small farmers and the family farmers, and what we're realizing is what we really need to do now in this next phase is also to include 2 groups: the immigrant groups, the immigrant farmer groups, and the larger farmers where they have a lot of farm workers. So that we're trying to do a better job at making sure we include the larger producers, because they've got a lot of farm workers and those who speak different languages, how to do this. So we're offering a 2-hour workshop where we'll come to the site with their HR and do like, so, you know, I have to present in a way that's friendly because they're like, oh my God. Although we're able to go into Bayer. Bayer is one of this big seed company, and on a wellness day that they had for their farm workers, and a lot of Filipino and Micronesians, and we did a workshop that was well received. But to get into Bayer, you had to go through all the security clearance. I'm like, oh my goodness. Next. So once you're on board as a peer mentor, there's a bit of logistics. Thank goodness I have Alexis, who loves to organize. I am not much of an organizer, but she loves to herd cats. So she loves, and it's like, they call her, they text her. I'm like, oh my God, thank goodness she's doing that. And she loves doing that. And she brings them all together, because you do need somebody to be able to touch base with them. Farmers are so busy. They're out in the field. Even when they zoom in for our monthly check-in, some of them are out in the field. You can see their cows, you can see they're on the tractor, but they still check in sometimes because we have somebody who was always like, hey, remind you, we're coming in, we're doing this again. We have a clear agenda. We go over the roles and responsibilities as an ag peer mentor. We talk about some of the boundaries and how you do effective communication when you're out in the field. And we provide support in many different ways, and ongoing support. Providing peer-to-peer support. I think this is just repeat. Okay. And I think this is also a repeat. These again, the trainings that all our peer mentors are required to do in order to get their stipend. They don't get a stipend until after they do all these trainings. So they know that. And this one's really interesting. This one is the one that I got a little grief about because it looks cutesy, or, you know, not the typical academic kind of way. But I've got farmers who continue to ask for copies of it when they do workshops in their community, or they at a farm fair. So I just keep producing more copies of this and giving it all out. And it's available in 7 different languages too. Yeah, we had it translated in 7 different. So in terms of the evaluation, because we do need to show evaluation of some sort. And I want to share with you the effect of our Ag Peer program in terms of just basic pre and post on measures that we've been collecting. So confidence. So this is the Ag Peer program. These are the 61. Not everyone do their pre and post, right? As you know, some people won't do their pre and post, but that's okay. So confidence in identifying signs and symptoms of mental health challenges in self. So the pre is the orange bar and the post is the blue bar on a scale from 0 to 5 in terms of greater, confidence. Yes, I'm more confident in ability to know the signs and symptoms of anxiety, burnout, depression, stress, and suicidal ideation in myself. All in the positive trend. Thank goodness it's not in the opposite trend, because if it was, I would like, okay, what are we doing wrong? But it's in the positive direction. But more importantly, it's also with others, right? So they're also saying, and the bars are even higher in terms of pre and post, and saying, I am more confident in being able to identify the signs of stress and challenges of mental health and others in terms of their peers, right? So it's showing like, yeah, I have a bit of confidence in knowing what to look for. Now, what about in terms of knowledge, right? What is good mental health, right? When you say mental health, people say it's mental illness. No, mental health is not mental illness. So part of the training, we do that. And so now they know what is good mental health. And they're not like, they're not adverse when we say mental health. They know more about what our main stressors of farmer. I mean, they're farmers themselves. So that's not a biggie, but apparently they have more knowledge. But look at this one, mental health service provider, because as part of being the ACT mentor, there's a much greater increase after the training in terms of who they can reach out to in terms of mental health providers and other mental health, an online mental health resource, including WRASAP and Farm Aid. So we also share those resources. So there's more greater confidence in their ability to know where to access these resources. Confidence and ability, right? So in terms of behavior, discussing health, making referrals for support, and supporting other farmers, as well as confidence in destigmatizing this whole mental health. Is that all I have? Yes, I think that's all I have right now in terms of some brief pre and post of our ACT mentor program. So then we expanded this year and this was from the WRASAP that gave us support to do the WRASAP 3. So we expanded our ACT peer mentor to do what we call the ACT navigator program. So of our 61 ACT peer, we invited those who are interested in becoming ACT navigators. So they do 2 full day of retreat when they came in person, and we worked with a mental health provider to provide them more skill in doing this sort of destigmatization of mental health and providing that support. So there was role playing, there was scenario training in that 2 day, all day. And then they were required actually to do farm visits. So they were required to identify 2 farmers that they've never worked with and do farm visits. 2 farm visits a month for 6 months, and then filled out this like little needs assessment report card. So these are our ACT mentors doing farm visits every month for 6 months. And so we had, let me show you. So we, getting them to fill out this report card was also a pain, but they did in some ways. So this was so every time they did a farm visit, they were just to do this, like, we had 7 domains of well-being, and we went through that in our workshops for 2 days, the retreat. And then every time they went out and did a farm visit, there was like, okay, and after the farm visit, would you say, well, do you think this farmer have high life satisfaction, or low satisfaction, life satisfaction, low needs in terms of emotional needs, financial needs, physical needs, social connection, diet, nutrition. And so these are the mentors you're supposed to fill out after their farm visits. So we had 9 ACT mentors become navigators who did 90 farm visits over the 6 months and worked with 29 different farmers. And this was their baseline of that report card, pre and post. And what was interesting though, is what they shared was that as we got to know more about the situation of these farmers, my peers, we found more needs. That we actually said that there were more needs that was revealed in terms of emotional needs and financial needs. I think because of that trust, because they were doing, every monthly farm visits, there was more opening up and more trust building. And so they saw more needs rather than less need. And what was also interesting based on their qualitative focus group interview was that they felt that they benefited more than the farmers that they visited, that there was benefit because they had a greater perspective taking, because they thought they were highly needs, but when they met with other peers, they're like, whoa, I thought I was under stress. My goodness, this person is even more stressed than I thought. So I'm going to do some more of a perspective taking, and it deepened their appreciation for their peers. There was greater empathy that was developed. And they really emphasize that in-person connections really matter. And they're asking for more face-to-face interactions to build trust and support. So this was a pilot program from the WRASAP 3 that we were supported with. Okay. Yeah. So that's, I'm just gonna go that. Oh yes, and finally we have that voucher program. So we have, we only have 2 mental health providers who have gone through the farm response AgriSafe training. And for our voucher programs, they had to do this training to make sure that they can at least speak the language of the farmers to be participating in the voucher program. And to date, I think we distributed 40 vouchers. I've forgotten how many, and 20. So 40 vouchers, I have forgotten how many. Oh, 18 farmers have made use of this in the past year. So this is, yeah, so that was our AgriSave. And then, like I mentioned, we wanted to also, as part of building community connection of care, we realized that we do need to do more social media outreach, particularly for our young farmers who are engaged in social media, because the social media was one of the risk factors for depression and suicide. So we do have a presence on the social media, and we're pretty active in posting, at least not me, but my staff. I get on her case when she's not posting. So, like today was World Mental Health Day, so I asked her to do something, like post something on the World Mental Health Day. We've had our podcast. We have 46 episodes today and about 4,000 downloads, and it's reached all over the world. Apparently, we've had like 80 people in Germany and Sweden. I'm not sure what they're doing listening to Hawaii, but it's like, it's really interesting of how many and our farmers really like this podcast that we have. I'm not sure how do I continue with this. Oh yeah, see, there it is, our podcast. And then we also have a public media, social media campaign. We did public service announcement. That was 2 years ago. I'm not sure if that had any impact. I don't know how you measure impact on public service announcement, so don't know how to do that. And then I want to give time for any questions and discussion. So, yeah, I think I'll just end there because I want to make sure there's enough time for any questions and feedback or discussion. We are expanding. Like I mentioned, we do have funding now, not only from WRASAP 4, thank God, because I didn't have to lay off my staff, but with a grant from the Department of Health and Human Services, and we're doing more of a network building, expanding our network, and including first responders, so as essential workers. So we're now including both farmers and first responder in what we're doing, because the first responder groups are actually interested in what we're doing, and they want to do what we've been doing, which is kind of interesting.
It's really awesome. Thank you, Thao. I feel like you always have a wealth of knowledge to share and things that can be replicated, because we're seeing some of the same needs in our own communities, that need for connection. And I think that the model you have is very open and flexible to be adapted to other state needs. I have a lot of questions, but I want to open it up for the floor. First of all, if there are any questions, you can unmute yourself, raise your hand, or type it in the chat.
Or I would love to see your faces too. I don't know who all I see are names. I'm like, who are these people? Oh, thank you. I know Beth, because she's my, like, every time I have a question, I'm like, oh my God, I have to ask to modify the grant. Like,
Yeah, Beth, we all love Beth.
I know, right? And I'm going to be asking a question about that because I only put in the budget for like 10 ag peers for WRASAP 4, and now I've got 22. So Beth, I'm going to be emailing Dawn for that.
That's good. That's a good problem to have.
I know, right? I'm like, what the heck? How can we have 22? We only have 10 in the budget.
I did want to ask you how, because it sounds from the peer, the ag mentor model all the way to the navigator. Probably, did you pull from your peer mentors to be navigators?
Yes, we needed some of they needed to have the basic foundation of the training before they became the navigator. Yeah.
And with the peer mentors, you had that $500 stipend. How did it change for the navigators?
We provide them $1,000 for the stipend for the ag navigator, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, because they were required to do farm visits. And not only did we, it required them to do farm visits. Oh, okay, so for the Ag Navigator, I actually got a small pot of funding, 20,000 from Safe States, who allow me to provide ergonomics supplies. So every time, we supplied our ag peers, ag navigators with all these ergonomic, like anti-vibratory gloves. So every time they did a farm visit, they gave the farmers something. We had a little beautiful tool bag, and so every time they did visits, they gave a gift to the farmer.
Okay. So it sounds like it's a combination of their drive to be engaged in their communities, and then you're recognizing them through either the stipend or something physical that can help them into the community.
Yeah, the gifts are very important in the stipend, I think, is because it's to acknowledge their time. And you can't go, at least in Hawaii, you can't go empty-handed. You gotta bring food, or you gotta have some sort of gift. You can't go to somebody's house empty-handed. Not a no.
Mm. I mean, I think it's working out really well. What would you say is like one of the biggest challenges that you've come across and
Food,
food? Oh.
food, but that's my thing. And the bureaucracy. Okay, you're not recording that, right?
I think we are. Sorry, Thao. I think Whitney has a question.
Yeah, I'm curious with your navigators, what you described made sense of the more they were there, the more needs that they saw. So how might moving forward, what are maybe the outcomes you're hoping to see that are maybe positive, like measuring connection or something that might show the value in a more protective sense?
Yeah, so like I have no problem saying I really don't know what I'm doing, so it just comes up with this idea, and then I haven't like people. You'll ask my staff. She goes, "Oh, Tao just like has this idea," and then she's like, "We're just like all figure it out on the go." But this semester, I have 4 amazing GAs. One in anthropology, one in sociology, one in geography, one in urban planning, and they're going to be tasked with helping me figure that out. Like, we need to do this, you guys. How do we do this? I think we need to support the young people. Like I keep telling, I need to transition and get the young bright minds to help us figure this out. Because we're crusted.
And they're the ones that like trying new things too.
Exactly.
Not that old people can't try new things, but
Right.
they have
And
new
they work
ideas.
with somebody who's like all about risk taking. I'm high in terms of risk taking. And then and I have no problem apologizing afterwards. Oops, sorry.
Well, you're seeing lots of good results, and I think we're all grateful to be learning from you. And thank you for the support you're giving to this peer mentors. I know that acknowledging their work is I think the key driver, because they themselves even said it. They report that they're getting a lot out of it too. So that's really amazing.
Yeah, when we got the community award, because to get a mental health community award, it was the oldest mental health community organization in Hawaii that recognized the Seeds of Wellbeing. And so when we received the award, I invited 5 of our ag mentors and I paid for them to be at the table. And so they came to the awards, which was at a fancy hotel, right? It was at a fancy, Ala Moana hotel. And it was interesting, one of the farmer ag mentors, he brought papaya and fern salad, and his papaya was huge, and the fern salad was much better than the fancy food that they gave us. But we were the only table that had the fresh produce. Everybody else was stuck with the hotel and fancy food.
Yeah, no, see, that's great. That speaks to the uniqueness of the farming communities and how really rich we are in so many different ways. So, see, that could be a way to solve that food problem. Just make it potlucks or something like that.
Right. This award was like 200 people, and then I got up and I said, "Do you know who were the folks who like, as you were putting that fork in your mouth, who grew that food?" And they're all like,
That's great. Well, thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge with that, Tal. And of course, we hope to hear from you later on in the next steps. And we're very happy that you're going to continue to do this work with WRASAP and also expanding it. With that, I'm going to pass it on really quickly onto our announcements. Some of the other things that partners are doing around the states. So tomorrow, actually, we will be hosting a Pizza for Producers event specifically for veteran farmers with our partners at Center for Land-Based Learning. And again, this is similar to what Thao spoke of. You know, we've seen that need of building spaces to create community, and this is exactly what this event is going to be doing. And then a larger one for regional partners out of a Skagit County Extension Office. They're going to do the WRASAP kickoff for WRASAP number 4. This will take place on October 17th with our colleagues at Skagit County. Another event happening also in partnership with Agribility and WRASAP is the Agribility Regional Workshop, which will happen in Guam. This will be building resilient farming communities in Micronesia. From what I hear, this event is rather large. They have 128 people registered, with a large number of them being farmers. And also our partners at AgriSafe are hosting Question, Persuade, Refer trainings. These are suicide prevention trainings with a focus on farmers and farm families. The next one is going to be November 6th at 11 a.m. Central Time. And with that, thank you so much for joining us today. Let me just very quickly check the chat. Yeah, we're hearing some great things for Thao in the chat. Great work, Thao. I love how well you connect impactful community with work evaluations that clearly convey the impact. Yeah, the work that Thao is doing and other WRASAP partners are doing across the West is impactful, and it's inspiring for all of us. So again, thank you so much for sharing with us today, Thao, and we'll see you at the next WRASAP quarterly.